The 1.05 patch of Elden Ring has been released, and as you may know, you can no longer break guard with the Ash of War Ice Spear, which is actually a huge passive buff for the shield poke meta. And that's why I try to find some new solutions against this playstyle, and I wanted to share it in this video. Alright, so before we begin, let's start with the solutions that simply do not work. So the first one is trying to break your opponent guards without having the proper setup, because as you can see, against shield like the fingerprint, it's barely impossible to break the guard. The second bad solution is the backstab attempt, because you may be aware that backstabs in Elden Ring are definitely not the ones from Dark Souls 3, but I decided to try anyway. And as you can see, I completely failed with and without the lock-on because it was like simply too hard. And my friend tried as well, but he got punished pretty hard for that while I was just spamming my attacks like an idiot. He got me at the end, but it was mostly because I was wasting my stamina. Consequently, yeah, I can assume that backstabs are definitely not a good solution. Okay, so now let's talk about the solution that work. And the number one is to parry the poke attack. And for this, you have two possibilities. The first one is to make a predicting parry, which is actually not that difficult because I personally assume that they won't expecting it and they will consequently attack you as soon as you enter in their attack range. But an even easier parry is to block the first hit and then parry the second one, because the timing will be much easier to predict. And again, I don't think they will expect it. However, about the parry, just be aware that a good player can notice your parry attempt and will consequently do some mixed up to confuse you and make you miss your parry. Oh, and finally, don't forget to equip a dagger like the Misericord and the dagger talisman as well for the maximum damage possible. Number two, break your opponent's guard, specific for strength and quality builds. So to do so, you have two options. Firstly, you can use the Armor Talisman, which, according to the wiki, increases by 20% the stamina reduced by quarting, and you combine it with the Ash of War Royal Knight Resolve on either the Greatsword or the Giant Crusher. And then you can spam crush attacks with the Greatsword over and over until you break his guard. or you can use your heavy attack with the Giant Crusher. The second possibility is to use the Axe of Godfrey. And to demonstrate it, here is a footage that I watched on YouTube, and the link will be on the description. Number 3. Go through his guard. All build, but best with the dex and quality build. For this one, you can mix the Ashes of War Thunderbolt with Piercing Fang, combined with the Sharp of Alexander. So firstly, equip Thunderbolt with the Vulcar Militia Shotell, since the weapon ignores 40% of damage negation from blocks, again according to wiki. Then you can simply spam the Ash of War for a bit of cheap damage, and after that, equip the Piercing Fang to another weapon, for instance, lance or a halberd, and use it against your opponent because he might not be aware that it goes through blocks. But before going into the next solution, keep in mind that you can also use this strategy with the Coded Sword and the Cipher Pata, but they are only usable on a faith build. Number 4. Use the status effects, specific for intelligence, faith, and arcane builds. So this might indeed be one of the most powerful counters of shields, because you cannot avoid the different buildups. For intelligence build, your only option is the Sentinel Sword, and you should definitely try to duel them. Same thing for the faith build. The Vike Speed is a great option, especially again if you can duel them. One good advice is to always try to put pressure on your opponent, because your goal is to proc the madness. And once he's starting to panic roll, this is your time to shine. And finally, for the arcane builds, bleed works extremely well, especially if you can dual whips, twin blades, and spears. But one, I think, of the most powerful weapon is the Ripple Crescent Arbard, because you can combine it with the Sleepit Fusion, which is one of the most terrifying status effect in PvP. Number 5. Use Lifesteal Fist. So this is an interesting one, because since it's a grab, you cannot block it. However, this Ash of War is bugged, because it doesn't work sometimes without any real reason. But when it works, you can sustain a lot from this, and the damage scales with the Dagger Talisman. So, to be honest, I don't really know about the damage dealt, and unfortunately, this trick only works once, but it's definitely worth it to give it a try. Number 6, use Gravitas. Okay, for this one, I have to admit that it doesn't work. But since I found that I had 300 IQ on this one, I wanted to share it with you anyway. At least you also know that it doesn't work. So these were all the solutions I could suggest. As you may notice, they aren't as good as the ice spear, but this is all I can offer. And another thing to keep in mind is that the fight against a shield poker won't be easy, especially against good players if they decide to use this meta, as shown here with this clip from the streamer Jeenine, where he crushed his opponent very easily.
I have no pity for a double spear. So I'll shield poke.
As a conclusion, I wanted to show you my final and most radical solution in case you are bored of this shield poke meta. And honestly, don't feel bad, afraid, or ashamed to use it. And that being said, thanks for watching.